and I'm happy to welcome you all to today's call. Glad you could join us. We're really excited about what we have to show you today. We've been working on it very hard over the last couple of months, and think we've come up with a really great system to streamline submission and processing of CAFR so that we can get you that information as soon as possible. So we're really excited. Hope you're as excited as we are about this. So I want to introduce to you Allison Young and Braden Young from Laserfiche, which is the vendor we've worked with to develop this solution. And they're going to be handling today's training for the most part. And Allison will be explaining the logistics of the call to you, but they're going to walk through the process, how to register in Laserfiche, and also how to submit an application. So I'm going to turn it over to Allison and let her take it from here. And feel free to ask questions as you go along. There is a Q&A, and Allison will explain how to do that. Q&A where we'll be monitoring those questions and hopefully answer those in real time. So feel free to jot down anything that you have a question on as we're going along. So Allison, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us this morning. We're really excited to present the new system. As Diane mentioned, I will be turning it over to Braden, who will be conducting the demonstration of the system. If you are logged into WebEx, you should see a Q&A section on the side panel. If at any time you have questions, please type it in the panel. Myself and the panelists over at GFOA will be monitoring those questions and answering them in real time. If it is a question that relates to something that is being shown on Braden's screen, I'll try to chime in and get him to dive in a little more detail. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Braden. But before I do, just to address a couple questions that have come up, there is a training manual that should be downloadable from this WebEx event. If you can't download it for some reason, don't worry. We're also going to be posting it on the GFOA website along with a recording of this video, so you can always reference that. All right, Braden, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
Good morning, everyone. Hopefully everyone can hear me loud and clear. My name is Braden Young, and I'm one of the engineers that worked on the awards management system for GFOA. So we're going to hop right into it. The awards management system consists of two components, which will be the primary concern of the applicants. That is the forms system and the repository system. We're going to start with the forms system because that's where you'll have the most interaction, both in terms of data entry and directly with the GFOA team as they review your application and process any applicable awards. So we're going to start with registration. Now, the registration form that you'll see when this is live will look very similar to this. When you access it, it will auto-populate the information that we have on hand for your particular entity. It's important to note that the entity or the IMIS ID that you should use, if it isn't set by default, is the corporate or company entity ID, not your personal ID. There's only one ID per license, and once you submit the CAFR registration form, you will be granted access to the form system with an email that will send you a temporary password. So I've already registered with my IMIS ID, and it's also important to note that the IMIS ID, which is the company ID in this case, as it should be, is also the username that you will use to access the system. So when I registered to use this system, I received an email a little while ago that looked a little something like this. Specified my entity name, and it sent me my username, which of course is the company ID, and a password. When you log in, the first thing you will do is be prompted to change this temporary password for security reasons, of course. And on the login page, if you need to access it again and you have changed it and you cannot access your password, there is a forgot password option. As an example, I'm going to go ahead and exit out of here and log in.
So just while Braden's getting logged in here, there's a question as to where the entity ID comes from. And that's going to be your IMIS ID. And if you don't already have an IMIS ID, that's not a problem. You can contact GFOA Member Services and they can help you set it up. That's also the case if you don't remember what it is, which is totally fine too. As part of the training manual, we'll include the contact information for the GFOA Member Services so you know who to reach out to.
Right, so I just completed my login to the form system now, and the first thing you're going to see when you enter here is the inbox. Now the inbox is where all applications are processed and accessed from the applicant within this new awards management system. It's also, again, where you'll have majority of the contact with the GFOA team that is reviewing your application. The inbox consists of the open tasks, which are any forms that you've started or have come back to you from the team, and the drafts, which are forms that you've been working on that you've chose to save as draft mode before submitting. We have no drafts right now, but if we go to our open tasks, you do see that we have a single item here that was returned to me, in this case, the example government, that I can open up and view and edit. We're going to get into that in just a minute, but first I'd like to show you exactly how to access the actual CAFR application. Go up here to Start Process. Because you are an applicant, you'll see a few different options in here. Hopefully they're all fairly clearly labeled. In this case, you'll click on the CAFR application and select Start. A new window will open with the CAFR application. Now this is the primary thing that our team has been working on because it is hands down the most data entry heavy portion of this process. Some of the information will be populated for you automatically, like your associated username / company ID and the state, as well as the name of government. Now, you can alter this field, but if you choose to do so, it would be far better to reach out to GFOA and have them updated on the IMIS side so that the information matches across the board. That way, when you open the form again, next time you log in, it will have the correct information. We've tried to include as many useful tidbits of information on the form as we can. There's a number of things that you can look at and read as you're working your way through this form. And for the purpose of training, we're going to go ahead and work our way through this CAFR application as the example government and go ahead and submit it. So the first thing we're going to deal with is the dates associated with this CAFR application. I'm going to go ahead and put this down for 2019. And let's go ahead and make it what constitutes a full year. Now, if it's exactly a year in our system, you will not see any additional messages. But if it's not, you will be asked to acknowledge that the CAFR covers a period that is either less than 12 months or greater than 12 months. This is for GFOA's records, and it's mostly, the information for them is mostly used for internal processing reasons, but regardless, you will have to select this required checkbox. If you want to submit an application that is older than 6 months from the current date, you will be presented with this warning. Any applications that are older than 6 months from the date that you're currently viewing the form will require an extension request. Now, the extension request can be accessed through two different places. Either, if we go back to our forms inbox here, it can be accessed through the start processes, or, perhaps more conveniently, it can be accessed directly from the CAFR application form by clicking here. If you do that, any information that you've already entered on the CAFR application form will get moved directly into the application extension request. I'm going to go ahead and fill out this application extension to show you what happens when you actually submit the extension request. You can also optionally select the budget adoption date, and more importantly, the reason for extension. We have a number of preset reasons in here, but if none of them fit your particular predicament, you can select the other option, which will give you an additional field to clarify the exact extension or reason for extension details. I'm going to go ahead and just go through staff turnover, and lastly, I'll be required to sign the document. Now, this signature field is quite a lot of fun. You can either type your name in it and choose from a variety of preset styles, or if you prefer to draw such a thing, you can. Although, if you're a mouse user, this might be a little more complicated. The date will be automatically entered upon submission. I'm going to go ahead and submit this, and you'll see a message explaining what happens next. Your CAFR extension request has been received by GFOA, and you will receive an email that will explain the results of this extension request. Let's go back over to our CAFR application, and we're going to set this for a date that does not require us to submit an extension request. I should also note that items that are older than a year cannot be submitted, and you will see this bright red text pop up if you try to enter an end date that is older than a year, and you will need to reach out to CAFR support if this happens. Anyway, let's go ahead and go back to December and move on to the government type. Government type is another field that is automatically filled based on the government that we happen to be dealing with in the current form. In this case, our example government is a council of governments, but there are a number of different options here. If it happens that this field is filled incorrectly, you can go ahead and select the applicable item from the drop-down menu. It's also worth noting that some items, like special districts, have additional subtypes that you will need to select from if you choose them. I'm going to go back to Council of Governments and move on to the size indicator. Now, the size indicator field has a number of functions. It works with the government type, as well as some questions we'll see later on in this form to determine the fee associated with your CAFR application. The size indicator, what you need to enter in it, varies depending on the sort of entity you are. As you can see, we've noted it on the right side here. I'm going to put that this Council of Governments has a very large 100,000. Now for the submitter information. The submitter information in most cases will be similar or identical to the information that is associated with the actual login details to access this award system. I'm going to go ahead and fill out my information here. We'll continue running. As noted there, the email addresses do need to match, and we do have additional form warning messages if you enter incorrect emails, or rather emails that do not match. In the vast majority of cases, the submitter will also be the CAFR preparer. So to make life a little bit simpler for our applicants, we've added a button that allows you to copy all the information from the fields above directly into here. We keep track of all the submitter information in this form so that we can route documents and contact people appropriately. Now, the next part is for document generation. Who should receive the AFRA? That is the actual financial reporting achievement. We have a couple different options here, and you can select more than one. For instance, if we go with department, You're told to enter the department name, and if you hover your mouse over top of any of these question marks that appear next to the title of the field, it gives you additional details. These are called tooltips. As an example, if the offer should be received by individuals, in addition, or on its own, you can add up to 3 individuals by filling in the name and title and then clicking the Add button as needed. And of course, if no one needs to receive the offer in this case, you can go ahead and click None, and those fields will disappear. The formal announcement letter and press release is another document that GFOA can create are displayed on the form that once again allow you to enter specific information for who should receive this press release. One important thing to note about this additional information is the email. The email address cannot be the same email address as the submitter. And if you try to do so, it will automatically wipe out the email address and send you the same warning right underneath. I'm not going to fill out a press release request right now. Instead, I'm going to continue on. Now, in terms of the actual award, when it comes to the award plaque and medallion, once again, in many cases, there is a option to copy the information from above that you already have. However, in this case, we will also need an actual address to send the information from, or rather to. I'm putting in a fake address just for training purposes, but it will look something like this. And once again, you have tooltips specifying the exact formatting we'll need for the zip code. The auditor information section is a very interesting field, and again, in an attempt to make data entry as easy and as quick as possible for the applicants, we've added some interesting features to this section. So you can read all the instructions here, but the gist of it is this field does a database lookup based on the name that you type. And if you click into this field, audit agencies or firm names. And if you start typing, it will begin filtering out to match your search parameters. Once you select the one you want, you then select the appropriate state that goes with it. In this case, we're going with Arizona. And then directly below, you'll see a table of all the auditor information that we have on hand for that firm name, or in this case, the state auditor, and the state. Now, if your firm name returns, or audit agency returns no results, you can simply leave whatever you put in here and the state and manually type in the associated audit information. But if it does return results, like it has here for the state auditor and Arizona, you can select any one of these checkboxes on the far left to automatically copy that information into the fields below. If you accidentally copied the wrong one, you can go ahead and click clear that out, and then copy again any one that you like. And again, if your audit agency or firm name does not show up in this list, just type it and then type the data manually, and we will add it to our data ingestion. The GASBs are one of the few non-required fields on this form, so just select any that are appropriate. The disclosure questions feature a number of dynamic fields for information collection based on your yes or no selections to the questions. And in addition, some of these fields also reflect the fee that you will receive upon submission of the application. If we go ahead, for instance, and click yes to, is the government included in the reporting entity of another government unit, you'll be asked for more information on this, and as noted, some of these may prevent you from submitting the application. I'm going to go ahead and click yes to this, and no to the others. And I'm going to go ahead and click yes to, does this entity legally adopt a budget for government funds? Because there are a number of additional fields associated with this particular question. First, you'll need to select the legal level of budgetary control. And when you do so, you'll be asked to provide additional details. You'll then have a few more yes or no questions, and if your CAFR reports government funds and you select any of these options, you will need to specify Finally, we get to the Upload Required CAFR Documents section. The buttons that you see in this section are determined by the entity type and whether or not this entity is a previous submitter to the CAFR application, probably the awards process. And as well, there are some buttons that are shown based on your choices from the previous section in the display and disclosure questions. These buttons only accept PDFs and only one, so if your CAFR report is split across multiple documents, you will need to merge it into one before uploading it to this form. So I'm going to go ahead and upload an example PDF, and when it's uploaded, you'll see a little thumbnail version of it here. These buttons, of course, are required, and again, you may have additional document requests based on your selections earlier on in the form. Next is the fee payment. One of the items that GFOA has implemented is the ability to make your payment online. You can, of course, choose to pay by check, but if you choose to pay online, you will be taken to a fee payment gateway that accepts PayPal and credit card information. Let's read this in just a moment. Lastly, you have to agree and confirm that all the information you have entered is accurate, and once again, we have one of these fun electronic signature fields. The CAFR application has two buttons at the base: Application Submission and Save as Draft. Save as Draft allows you to save any form you're currently working on, in this case, this CAFR application, to your draft section of your form's inbox. If you expect that it's going to take you quite a bit of time to fill this form out, or you may need to go and come back, Save as Draft is a very useful feature. The system will allow you to stay logged in for up to 2 hours at a time, and if your time is about to expire, you will receive a pop-up message on your screen warning you that your time is about to expire in the system and asking if you would like more time. Right, I'm going to go ahead and submit this CAFR application. It may take a minute or so to jump to the next screen or submit the application, but when it submits, a number of things will happen. First, if you chose to pay online, you will be taken to the fee payment gateway. This, of course, is an example environment, so we're going to use our PayPal sandbox mode so that I do not get charged the amount on the screen. Let's go ahead and submit and confirm our payment, and then you will be shown a little thank you message. Now, you'll be receiving a couple different emails at this point in your email box for the whichever account is associated with the initiator. You will be receiving a copy of the application you just submitted, and an invoice. Now, if you chose to pay online, the invoice, of course, will mark that you have already paid. And if you chose to pay by check, the invoice will show you what is owed. I'm going to go ahead and pop over to my email box over here and go ahead and open the CAFR application. So your email should look nearly identical to this. Say it says for the specific CAFR application number, and your CAFR application that you just submitted will be attached in the form of a PDF. And as another example, the invoice email that you receive will look a little something like this. And the associated invoice will appear on the screen. Since I paid online, of course, the amount due is 0. Let's go back to forms for a second here and talk about a few things that you may run into on the CAFR application that might cause you to have any issues with submission. So I'm going to go ahead and open a fresh CAFR application here. As you might expect, one of the required fields on this form is the CAFR fee. And this field, of course, is not editable because the system determines the fee associated with the government. If you choose a government type and then enter a size indicator that is impossible for that government type, such as you choose a country's large, more than 300,000, and then you enter less than 300,000, the fee will be blank and you will be warned that the value is required. This is a fairly simple fix, of course. When you select the proper government type, the fee will automatically be recalculated if all the information on the form is correct. In addition, as I showed you earlier, when any of the date warnings are visible on the screen, such as the CAFR requires an extension, or it's older than a year, you will not be able to submit this form. Other than that, filling out all the required fields on the form should allow you to submit with no issue whatsoever. Now I'm going to go ahead and hop back over to the forms inbox because once you have submitted this form, a number of things happen behind the scenes. The application is received by GFOA and they begin the validation and eligibility steps. Now in the validation and eligibility steps, they may choose to send your initial application back to you so that you can make edits on it. And if that happens, you'll receive an email that looks similar to this. Your CAFR application requires your attention, and it will give you a link directly to your forms inbox. Now, for the sake of training, I have already gone through the application process and sent an item back to, in this case, the example government. Task is application resubmission, and to open a task, you can either normally just click the blue text on the task, or if you want to open it in a separate tab, you can control click it, and it will pop open in a separate task. Now, when the GFOA team chooses to send an item back to the submitter, they can also choose to include some notes and comments related to why they're sending it back and what may need to be changed. If that happens, you will see the comments associated with the form over in the action history. Now, when you open this form, you might see this window. The details pane over here may be collapsed. If so, just go ahead and expand, and you can see a summary of what's happening in this task and the action history. And again, if there are any comments from the team, they will be clearly visible within this action history. In this case, there were no comments, so I'm just going to go ahead and do the one field that is required every time, the signature, and send it back to the team. Now, you can use this way. This is one of the ways that you can communicate directly with the reviewers. In this field on the base, you'll see place your comments for the internal CAFR team here. It also explains how to access the action history. So if you receive a application resubmission and you have no idea why it came to you, they probably included useful information in the action history about what needs to be updated. And you can send information back to them here. Just like that, we've gone and resubmitted the form, and you'll now see that your form's inbox is empty. Now, every time that GFOA needs to contact you regarding your application, you will receive an email warning you that you have something in your form's inbox. And in the vast majority of the cases, there will also be a link to the form's inbox within the email. But you may wish to bookmark the form's inbox regardless, so that you always know how to locate it and have access to it. Now, there are a few additional forms that we should definitely look into outside of the main CAFR application. And in this case, we're going to look at one that is for additional notifications on the progress of your application. So once again, if we go over to Start Processes, we're going to select the Check CAFR Status. This is another form, and again, most of the information should be automatically filled for you within the account. All you need to do is enter your email address. So, what this form does is, first of all, a government should only have one active application at any given time. So when you provide your email address, it essentially subscribes you to updates on the application status as it progresses through the review. Now, the GFOA review consists of validation, eligibility, perhaps CAFR support, depending on the situation, and then the initial review, final review, and editing. If you choose to use the check status form, you will receive notifications when your application is progressing through any of the pending sections, initial, final, and editing. If you do not choose to use check status, you will only receive notifications when GFOA reaches out to you requesting more information, or when the application process is completely done, as in the application has gone through editing and any associated award documents are released to the applicant. We're going to talk about the award processing in just a second here, but are there any additional questions on the functionality of the form's inbox before I talk about the repository?
So I do have a couple questions that have come up. One just came in is, can this email address be a group email? So absolutely it can be. Basically, the system is going to send an email out to whatever address is entered in that email address. And if it does happen to be an email group or distribution group, it will go to everyone in that group. So you just want to make sure if you're going to add that you do want all email communications to go to everyone in the group.
Thank you. Any more questions in the chat?
Just looking at them, just for those who are not actively viewing the chat, I'm just going to go over a couple questions that were frequently asked. One being about the draft mode. Basically, at any point during the CAFR application population, you can save as a draft, as Braden showed you. At that point, if you do need someone to review the application prior to submission, you can certainly either have them log in with the same ID and look at the draft themselves, or you can print it if you do want to actually send them a copy. So you do have a lot of opportunity to do reviews and make modifications prior to submitting. But once it's submitted, it is submitted. So you certainly want to make sure that you have it in draft mode prior to submission.
Exactly.
Otherwise, there was a question about the file size of the CAFR upload and if there's any limits on it. So I'll just confirm that while the award management system doesn't have any limits on the size of the CAFR report, we have found in our experience that some browsers do have a built-in maximum of 2 gigs. That is a very large CAFR, so hopefully you never hit that limit, but I did want to make everyone aware. And then finally, a very common question that's come up that we've addressed, but if you have already submitted an extension for this year, you don't have to send another extension in. We'll have imported any extensions already received into the new award management system so that when you do come in to actually submit your application, we've already granted that extension. It will allow you to submit. Okay, we have a couple other questions coming in here. So first is it okay to set up an account even though you're not ready to submit the CAFR yet? Absolutely. There's nothing stopping you setting up your award management system account and having those login credentials ready for whenever you are ready to submit your CAFR. Starting next week, that capability is going to be opened to all of the applicants. So if you do want to go in and create your logins, you certainly can. Okay, so next, can you have more than one email address notified of status? So I guess this goes back to the previous question. You can have a group email. I will talk with the GFOA team to see if we can add multiple. It's certainly something the system's capable of doing, but it's not implemented. So we will take that as a takeaway. So we have one who will be logging in and filling out the application. Okay, so that's a very good question, and one that we do want to cover in detail. Right now, a particular government or entity will have one login to the award management system as a whole. And you can really share that login information with anyone who's going to be responsible for submitting or reviewing that application. So you want to make sure that particularly whoever's signing up in the registration process, that the email entered here and confirmed is the person who should be receiving the login information, because that's where it's going to be sent. Once it's received by that individual, though, you may share that login information with anyone else that's going to be involved. Okay, so I'm working my way down the list here. What if the credit card approval signature is different than the submitter? Is there additional field for a signature for the credit card payment section? Okay, interesting question. So if I'm understanding correctly, the person submitting will not necessarily be the owner of the credit card, in which case you probably want to save as a draft and have the actual person responsible for entering the credit card information come in and complete the submission. Right now, it doesn't verify the signature of the credit card. It just verifies the information that the credit card is accurate. But that's something that we will take as a discussion point. Okay, another common question that we've seen is how do you set up or receive your IMS ID? And that's a very good question because it is the first step of this process and something you will need. So if you do not have an IMS ID or are not sure if you have one, you can reach out to GFOA member services and they can assist. If you do have an IMS ID, but it's a personal one and not necessarily your organization's ID, that's not a problem. As part of the registration portal, it's going to make sure that it's going to verify that you do have an organization ID associated and send that information over. We are going to include detailed steps in the training manual for the registration process to make sure that everyone involved knows exactly who to contact and how to get that information. All right, so there's a question that if you've already submitted for this year, can you use the check status option? So if you've already submitted for this year, we will be sending out the logins automatically for once the final decision has been made. So the check status isn't going to be available for anyone already submitted, but you will automatically receive a notification and a login to the award management system upon final decision. But anyone who submits day forward as of next week will be able to use that check status.
I'd actually like to comment on items that are currently being processed by GFOA, or as we sometimes refer to as items that are in flight. GFOA has onboarded thousands of items that were undergoing evaluation into this new awards management system. And the registration is primarily for people who have not yet submitted their application for this year. If you've already submitted your application, at the time of award package generation, you will receive both a link to where your award documents are located, and at that time we check whether or not your IMIS ID, your company ID, is connected to an account in the Laserfiche document management system. And if it is not, we will also send you, well, we will also create an account for you automatically and send the temporary password in the email to you as well. Of course, this only happens if your account does not already exist in the system, and it only happens for items that are already being processed at the time that this system goes live next week.
Thank you, Braden. And I'm going to allow you to continue on. I'm still getting through all of the questions that came in. I appreciate the active audience. So I'll start addressing them in the chat, and then the next time we take a pause, I'll try to get through some more of them. So please continue on, Braden.
Okay. So related to the document award package generation system, we're going to head on over to the file repository. As I just said, when your document folder in the repository, which I'll explain in a minute, is updated, you will receive an email notifying you as such, as well as a link directly to the folder. Let's hop on over to the repository, and again, in this case, we're still logged in as the example government. So while this is loading, I'll just explain. The repository is essentially the document management system for the award management system. All documents that are uploaded on the form end up here, and any awards and transcripts between the applicant and the reviewers will also end up inside the Laserfiche repository. And in the unlikely event that you need to reach out to GFOA directly and give them additional documents that were not provided in the initial submission and are not able to be provided in a resubmission for whatever reason, your documents that you send would also end up here. Now, if you have a look, first of all, this is the repository, Laserfiche repository for the award management system. If you have a look in the top right, you'll see that the user is indeed our example government 24601, and we're currently in the test environment for training purposes. The security set on the repository is such that when you log in as an entity, the only files and folders that you are allowed to see are those directly associated with your entity, and more specifically, the folders directly associated with what we call the customer package. So if a GFOA reviewer was expanding this entity folder, they would see many, first of all, they would see all the states, and then under each, many hundreds of entities. In this case, you, as the example government, will only see the example government. So if we continue down this tree, as you see, we've submitted a couple different examples here for training purposes, but I'm going to go ahead and go into the 2019 stub folder and the customer package. And here it is. So once again, if this all seems like a lot of information, don't worry. When the email comes, you'll receive a link that takes you directly to this customer package. Now the customer package holds all of the award documents as well as anything the customer has uploaded in the form. The award documents will all be in PDF format as well as these additional templates. These will be in PDF format as well. And this is the primary way, or I guess the only way really, that the applicant will access the award documents and be able to download them and send them however they desire. So again, each applicant will only be able to see their specific folder tree and their associated customer package. Now, if you're inside the repository, you'll notice that all these names are actually links. And for PDF items, if you click on a link, it will open automatically in a new tab or new window, depending on your browser, and it will display to you a read-only version of the award. I just clicked on the certificate, and there we go. Here's an example of a certificate that might be made for our example government in Arizona. Now, you have a couple options. You're not just limited to viewing your items in here. You can, of course, download them as well. So you can download them either from within this document viewer, that is the document viewer that you see when you click on an actual item, by using the download option, or you can always email a copy of this to yourself or to someone else as desired. In addition, you may want to download everything in your customer package, or multiple items at least. So let's say you're back here in the main repository window. If you have an item selected, that is with its checkbox, or simply highlighted, like so with the checkbox, you will see again an option to download over here and to email. And if you select multiple options, or pardon me, multiple documents, and click download, you can download them all inside a zip folder and you will get the electronic documents. And then once you download them, they are for you to do with as you please. Some of these items are shortcuts, and actually in this particular version of the repository they appear to be Word documents, but in the production version they will be PDFs. If you choose to download these, you will download the associated policy documents that come with every customer package that GFOA processes. Now, the licensing is such that a government entity cannot add additional documents to the repository. You would need to either use the provided upload options in forms to do so, or reach out directly to GFOA in exceptional circumstances. But regardless, any documents inside your specific customer package you can download. And as an example, I'm going to open up another customer package that has not gone through the award processing yet. And you can see that the documents that we uploaded earlier on the form are also here. So it also keeps a document of keeps a copy of the report that you uploaded that is associated with your particular application. Now, this next part is not in production yet, but if you go all the way through the application process and GFOA determines that you are awarded or qualified, the CAFR report associated with that particular application will go to a public folder that will be accessible without login. Essentially identical to what you can currently do on GFOA's website. So once again, the link for this repository will be emailed at the time of package generation. And for anyone who doesn't have an account, basically those who already have items going through the new system, they will also receive an email with instructions and credentials for logging in for the first time so that they can access their completed award package documents. There are a few other things you can look at while you're inside the repository, although they are less important to the actual applicant, such as if you wanted to view the information associated with your particular government, example government. You can view some of that information over here in what's called the metadata pane. But again, the primary reason that you will be coming in here as an applicant is to access your generated award documents. Now, I imagine there's definitely some questions here, so I'm going to pause for a second so that we can review them.
All right, so I'm going to go through a couple of the questions, and thank you everyone for your patience in waiting for my responses. I am working my way down. But just so you know, we're also going to summarize all of the questions asked during these training sessions and post them as a frequently asked questions document on the website. So even if I don't get to it during the training session, know that I will have those questions addressed. But in the meantime, we have one at the bottom here. Will each of our repositories be retained in perpetuity? So to address that, yes, we will. As you apply for future years, the previous years will be retained. So you'll always be able to reference back your prior applications and the documents associated. Okay. Those of us who have already submitted our CAFRA by email, will we see the customer package on the AMS? Yes, you will. So if you've already submitted the CAFRA for this year, as soon as the final decision has been made on the GFOA side, we will send an email with your login credentials for the AMS, which will take you right to this repository where those documents in the customer package are.
Indeed, the registration that we talked about at the very beginning is primarily for those who have not already submitted their CAFRA application. If you have already submitted your CAFRA application for this year, when the package generation is complete, you will receive your login details.
All right, we are good at the moment, Braden. Please carry on.
Okay, so with that, we've covered the primary ways that the applicants will access the award management system, both in submitting forms to provide information for GFOA to review, as well as uploading documents, and when GFOA is done with their evaluation and editing, how they will access their customer package and associated award documents. Does anyone have any questions about what we Okay, then I'm going to turn this back over to the GFOA team in case they have any additional comments that they would like to add.
All right, so at this point, we have covered all of the information that we intended as part of the training. So I do want to open it up to additional questions, as I'll try to get through as many as I can during this session, but it's also great to capture them. All right, Diane, there's a question about whether the system will also be used for budget and PAFR.
Yes, we do plan to transition the other programs onto this platform. We'll be looking at PAFR next, followed by budget. We don't have an exact time frame at this point, so we'll start looking at that in the fall, but we don't have a time frame when they'll actually be active. But yes, that is the plan.
And as far as obtaining the training manual, apologies if you weren't able to download it from the WebEx here. We will make sure that we send out a copy. Also, it's going to be available on the GFOA website along with this training video and a copy of the question answers.
And just, I want to clarify one other thing that seemed to be a common question as well. When we say the IMIS ID, that is actually the same as your member ID. So if you have a member ID, you don't need to get something different.
And Diane, I have a question of what is the deadline to ask for extension of CAFRA 2020 fiscal year for school districts?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that question? I didn't hear it all.
Sorry, there's a question of what is the deadline to ask for extension of CAFRA 2020 fiscal year and on June 30?
Basically, we need to have before it's due, we need to have an extension in. So as soon as you know that, I would encourage you to do that. And if you can wait to do that in the system, that's even better. But we need to have that extension before it's actually due. So it's based on your fiscal year end date.
And if I might chime in for one moment, as noted previously on the actual application, if you begin the application and enter your date information and an extension is required for that particular date, the application will warn you as such and allow you to access the extension application, the extension form directly from the application form. Thank you.
Great. And there's a question that if you are ready to submit your CAFR this week, should you wait till June 1st? I would recommend you wait till June 1st because then it is in the new system and you're going to be able to go through the check status process and all of the additional features that come with the system. So if you can wait till Monday, I think that would be a good approach. There is a question regarding will you receive the sticker or your wall plaque or the medallion? So yes, that has not changed. The system will track the award years and therefore still issue out the medallions and the plaques accordingly. Okay, so going through the questions here. So we have, after the first year, will the reviewer comments from the prior year automatically load for new applications from the repository? Oh, okay, I understand the question. So I'm assuming for the application where you upload the previous year comments, yes, we will have a copy of the previous year comments. You can certainly still upload them, but the system has those in our database and can pre-populate that information for the reviewers.
In addition, if the application detects that if you have previously submitted to the system, you will be presented with an upload button on the CAFR application itself for the comments document associated with previous applications.
Let's see what else I can ask. So there's still a lot of questions regarding the IMIS ID. Diane, do you mind if I turn it over to you to kind of just discuss how that's going to work in the difference?
Yes, and are the questions how we'll use that or how they get one?
So both. There's kind of, it runs the gamut. So I guess from what it is and where they get it, to why it's only a single for a government as opposed to multiple, and how that's going to work.
Okay, so for the first point of clarification is, as I said, the IMIS ID we're referring to is the membership ID, and that's an ID that you receive when you sign up to be a member of GFOA, or even if you're on our database as a non-member, we do have that classification. You will get a login information and an IMIS ID number. So that's kind of your ID number that'll be used for anything that you do with GFOA. And that's the number that we're using in the system to make sure we're linking up with the membership system. The difference between the membership system and this system is this one is company-based. So while we can take a look at your personal ID and know what company you're connected with, the ID that is used in this system will be the company ID. So that's the one point of difference between that and why the registration it's registered to the company. So everything in this system will be based on the organization as opposed to the person. And as we said, if you don't have that number, you don't know what your number is, if you contact membership@gfoa.org, they can give you that number so that you can have that to start the system. So if you're unsure of that, contact the membership and make sure you've got that number. Then they can give you both your individual and then the company ID number so that you can register in this system.
Thank you, Diane.
Yes.
Okay, so we have one that due to COVID-19, any waiver for the application deadlines this year?
We are looking at that as definitely, we know that that is affecting you. We have not put in an automatic extension because we wanted to make that available to you for whatever your conditions are. So we are still asking that you register for an extension, and we are granting those based on that reason.
All right, so we have a question that if we have submitted and there have been no application changes anticipated for next year, will the system preload information for us? So as part of the application, some of the information will be pre-populated if we already have the information, such as your government information, so you don't have to retype that. We do have other fields that, upon working with GFOA, decided that those should be entered uniquely each year. So the answer to that is some fields will be pre-populated, and that will be defined in the training manual also, what you can expect to be pre-populated versus not.
If I could jump in, one other point on the IMIS idea, I was reminded that that number is in the upper right-hand corner of the prior year, the comments page that we sent you in your prior year award package. So you can also find that without going to a membership, if you can take a look at that.
Okay, just bear with me for a second, just scanning some of the other questions, see if there's anything we can address up front. Okay, so there's a question of when will the login emails be sent to each of the applicants? So a couple different ways. If you have already applied for this year, we will send the login emails upon final decision made by GFOA. So upon decision, you'll get an email with your login credentials and access to the package that was generated in the repository. If you have not already submitted for this year, then you can go in and as of Monday and sign up for an account. And upon creation of the account, you'll receive the email with login credentials. So it depends where you fall. So we do have a lot of questions about the training document, and to confirm that it will be found on the GFOA website. I should have a list of attendees from this event, so I can go ahead and send that training manual out to all attendees that I have the email of. But if you do not receive it by email, then we will also have it posted on the GFOA website along with this video and any of the questions that were asked. Okay, so we have a question. If you need clarification related to CAFR comments, how do we communicate through this system?
I can comment on that.
Oh, okay, go ahead. Good.
So when your application process gets to the point where comments become a thing for evaluation, which happens in initial and final review, similar to what happens in the process during validation and eligibility, where either of those teams can send that form back to you to make changes or alterations. In initial and final, when they're evaluating comments, they can also send a much more straightforward form back to you that you would find in your forms inbox, and of course you would be notified via email that it's there, that will ask you for additional information or one thing or another. So again, we try to keep the vast majority of the communication for the awards management system within forms so that it's easy to track and easy to store. And do expect that whenever there's a back and forth between any of the reviewers and the applicant, that you will receive a notification in your associated email box that it's there so you can log in and sort it out. Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to open it up to any last questions. Looks like we have one comment about next Monday when we get a count. I'll just clarify that one more time for everyone. So it's going to work one of two ways. If you have already applied this year, you've already submitted your CAFRA application, you will receive login credentials automatically via the system once a final decision has been made by GFOA. And that's going to allow you to log into the system and see all of the associated documents. If you have not already applied this year, then the system will be live on Monday, and you can register for the system to receive login credentials at that time. And that email will be sent to whatever email you enter in the system. All right, it looks like the questions have slowed down at this point. So I'll go ahead and wrap up and just say thank you so much for your participation. It's always really rewarding to have questions asked throughout and know that everyone is interested and engaged. So thank you from our perspective. And I'd say if I did miss anyone's questions, I apologize, but I will certainly make sure those are addressed in the Q&A. Okay, I'll turn it back over to you, Diane.
Well, thank you, Allison and Braden. I think we, as I said, we're excited about this. We're glad to have worked with you on this, and we're excited to roll this out next week. So we look forward, and to all of those who signed on and participated in this, thank you for your interest as well. We look forward to working with you on this and getting any questions. We're setting up, you'll get this information on the website, kind of a help desk that if you have questions as you go along, there'll be email and phone for you to ask those questions so that we can help you through any problems that you might encounter. But I think it'll go fairly smoothly. We're ready to go, and we're really excited about that. So thank you again for attending, and feel free to follow up, with questions as you get into the system. We're looking forward to working with you on this. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you, and have a great day.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.